On March 14, 2014, the body of a Japanese man was found on the banks of the Ganges River flowing through Varanasi, India. The victim was 22-year-old Adam Imazato. Mr. Imazato was found leaning as if resting against the sand, but there was a cord wrapped around his neck, and that cord was connected to a bamboo pole. Given these circumstances, the local police concluded that Mr. Imazato was strangled with a cord tied to a bamboo pole. It was determined to be death by asphyxiation, and the case was immediately investigated as a homicide and reported to the Japanese embassy. However, not long after, the investigation was closed, and incredibly, Mr. Imazato's death was treated as a suicide by hanging himself with the bamboo pole. In the end, more than 10 years after the incident, in March 2025. Currently, there has been no further progress on this case. Why? Why was a case that was determined to be a murder immediately treated as a suicide? The Japanese embassy protests. Why didn't anyone take action? How do the parents feel? This case is about the initial response. From the investigation to now, every response has been so terrible that viewer discretion is advised. Now, here are the details of the case. Mr. Imazato from Omura City, Nagasaki Prefecture, joined the Japan Ground Self-Defense Force after graduating from a local junior high school. He entered the technical high school, and after graduating from the technical high school, he lived in Itabashi Ward, Tokyo. He worked part-time as a cram school instructor and at a leisure facility while studying hard for the University of Tokyo entrance exam to pursue his dream of becoming a newspaper reporter. It was around the fall of 2013 that Mr. Imazato decided to travel to India. That's right, I wanted to reset everything within myself. It meant I wanted to try hard again and start anew. It was a determination to make a fresh start. And then, on March 10, 2014, Mr. Imazato set out for India. He had traveled to India once before, and this time he planned a trip of about 2 weeks before departing. On his departure morning, he sent this message to his friend on LINE. "I'm leaving now, going to Atom." A Muro from Gundam. He made a pun on making a solo sortie, so he set out full of excitement and humor, brimming with anticipation. The next day, March 11th, I arrived in New Delhi, India's capital. Mr. Imazato bought a round-trip train ticket to the city of Kolkata. On this day, I traveled to the city of Agra, which is famous for the World Heritage Site, the Taj Mahal, and I stayed there overnight. On March 12th, I visited several temples and took an overnight train that night. I left Agra by car and planned to visit the city of Varanasi, which is famous for the Ganges River, but that would be afternoon on March 13th. Suddenly, all contact from Mr. Imazato stopped. Without any record of staying in Varanasi, around 8:15 a.m. on March 14th, he was found by local residents. He was found dead, and as mentioned at the beginning, based on the situation at the time of discovery, the local Varanasi police determined that he had been killed by someone and reported it to the Japanese embassy. It was expected that the investigation would proceed as a murder case. But the situation quickly changed. It was eventually treated as his suicide. Why? The reason behind this was the Mafia. Actually, the city of Barana is overrun by the Mafia. It's a city that's famous, and it's especially controlled by a Mafia organization called Lapka. And this Lapka has bribed the local Barana city police. So when it comes to cases involving Lapka, the police as an organization are completely dysfunctional. That's why murders and missing person cases happen frequently, but they rarely become public. Because of all this, it's assumed that his death was treated as a suicide, probably under Lapka's orders. In other words, to put it another way, Mr. Imazato's death is connected to this Lapka. His death was definitely a homicide, a murder case. From here on, I'll discuss the basis for that. It's not a suicide. The first reason is the eyewitness testimony, which I mentioned earlier. Afternoon on March 13th, he went missing on the street. Now, as for Sato-san, There was eyewitness information from local residents saying that he was arguing with the owner of a certain souvenir shop. Furthermore, the local residents all say in unison that the owner of this souvenir shop is the culprit. Reason number 2, the place where the body was found. I heard about his wrongdoing. His parents immediately flew to the site. There, his mother filmed the scene herself with her cell phone and described the situation. The site of the incident was located in a place away from the city, clearly indicating that he had been moved. Travelers without transportation couldn't reach it. Reason number 3, the purchase of a round-trip ticket. Mr. Imazato bought a round-trip train ticket from New Delhi to Kolkata, and from the perspective of the capital, New Delhi. Kolkata is located in the far east of India. On the way, there is Agra, and then you go further east, and there is Varanasi. The final destination is Kolkata. In other words, I had bought a return ticket to New Delhi. It's hard to imagine that a person would commit suicide in the middle of their journey. Reason number 4, the situation when the body was found. I traced the cord that was wrapped around his neck. At the end of it was a bamboo pole, and that bamboo pole was just loosely stuck in the sand. In other words, it was wrapped around his neck. In this state, the cord wouldn't tighten enough to cause strangulation, so it must have been tightened by someone else's hand. It's very likely. Reason number 5, contradictory cause of death, according to the results of the subsequent autopsy on Mr. Imazato. The cause of death was determined to be strangulation by a sudden force, and it was concluded that he died while being hanged. No bodily reactions were detected at all. In other words, it wasn't a case where force was gradually applied like in hanging. Reason 6, missing belongings. They were found next to Mr. Imazato's body. Only his cell phone was left in his backpack. $10, cigarettes, some pills, and a notebook were found. That's just about 1,500 yen in Japan. That's all he had, even on a 2-week trip to India. Most puzzling of all was one thing. It was that the wristwatch he always cherished still hadn't been found. In other words, there's a high possibility that it was taken by someone. Even though there are clearly unnatural facts like this, if we assume his death was a suicide. The fact is, in the end, it was handled as a suicide with hardly any investigation. At the time, his parents flew to the site themselves and gathered evidence. They desperately took action for their son. The chief of Barana City Police explained directly on site. They were told firmly, "We will find the culprit." Local media reported it too. The police announced that they have determined it to be a murder case and are proceeding with the investigation. However, things did not proceed in the direction the parents had hoped. Soon after, the investigation considered both crime and suicide possibilities. Soon after that, the case was handled as a suicide. The parents went to the embassy, asking them to make the identity public and to have the media cover the case. However, the embassy's response was incomprehensible, saying that it was not the right time, and they even announced that the identity would not be revealed at the family's request, which was completely against the parents' wishes. Newspapers reported that, per the parents' request, the identity was withheld and no belongings were found stolen. The reports made it seem as if it was definitely a suicide, which left the parents shocked and angry. I wonder if the Japanese embassy has also been bribed by Lapuka, because their response is just that incomprehensible. I considered Japan-India diplomatic relations. Maybe that's the result, but the important thing is that a person's life has been taken. Seriously, this is no joke. Even though there is plenty of evidence showing that this case is clearly not a suicide, it is still being treated as one. The fact that it was handled this way is absolutely unacceptable. However, just as important as that, I have to say that the response from the embassy's country was also sloppy. He desperately acted to uncover the truth behind his son's death. When the parents appeared on television at the time, the mother spoke like this through tears. He messaged his friends, saying things like, "It's 35 degrees, so hot." He said, "There are so many flies." Those were Adam's last words. There are so many flies." That was Adam's last words. A mother speaks to the family altar on the verge of tears, about to break down. She desperately tries to hold it in and smiles. She puts on a face, forcing an expression, and says, "Adam, you didn't want to die, did you? You didn't want to die in India, did you? Your mother and the others will uncover the truth, so please wait for us." It's now been over 10 years since the incident. However, the reality is that there has been no progress in this case. The feelings of the parents have not changed, and I believe this is an incident that must never be forgotten. Any progress would matter. I hope this brings progress and sincerely pray for the repose of Mr. Imazato Adams' soul. That's all for now. Thanks for watching until the end.